So we here at Unsound Chess occasionally have a tactically brain-dead day. It's just one of these days when for some reason you might even drop a piece and just be shocked out of your mind that you're playing such bad chess. In which case it's a time that you can take to practice your positional skills. Because it is possible to play chess without thinking. And sometimes when you just start shuffling and relying on positional situations that have very little life in them, it allows you to sharpen up on some of the positional things you might otherwise forget. So this is a form of winding down from the unsound chess world and play something ridiculously sound. So sound that it gives you no advantage once again, but that it has a kind of an interesting situation. Now for some reason, I was having one of those days and I played a system against a really highly rated player who was playing the Sicilian. I just wasn't in the mood to play my wing gambit. And I decided to just play f4, and the fact is that in this particular attack, and the only reason I know it's called the McDonnellSicilian is that that's what the engine I ran it through calls it. I always thought it was a system played by Ben Larson, but maybe the fact that bishop to b5 is involved here makes it the McDonnellSicilian. So it's the McDonnell attack against the Sicilian. So I play it somewhat like, from what I could tell, almost like a King's Indian attack, except I get f4 in without much effort because I can do it right away. So without much further ado, we're going to show you how we really get in a positional mood here, and we use the bishop on b5 to double the c pawns, and we play against those c pawns, much like the black side of many Nimzo Indians for black. So I'm going to show you how that works exactly, because pretty much you're going to get one of those pawns sooner or later if you set yourself up right. Those pawns, one of them is going to be a dead duck. So now we're going to go to the game and turn on our handy dandy engine, and we'll see what the McDonnell-Sicilian looks like. Okay, so f4, I had a pamphlet when I was a kid written by Bent Larson, and Bent Larson was probably the second strongest player in the world at the time, and he played f4 against the Sicilian, and I've done it in tournament against like some really, really strong people, like people who were rated 2,500 in the 1970s. So it's just kind of a gutsy move, and so I do have some success and experience playing these things. So here we go with the knight c6. Now when I see that, I'm going to try to double those pawns over there, then I'm going to blockade the pawns, and then I'm going to set up a positional attack against those pawns. So here we go with the doubling. Okay. Now the goal is don't let him undouble those pawns easily. So we're going to try to lock the position up. And this is a kind of situation where computers don't really help very much. So the computer doesn't like that move, as you see. And he's protecting his knight from being chased with g4, which seems unnecessary, and perhaps he's setting up some sort of kingside attack. But when these players get these high ratings, they think they can just shove every pawn on the board up here, whatever. And so it said bishop to d2 is the right move, but I have an entirely different scenario that's going to occur here. My goal is to move my knight to a4, my bishop to a3, and attack that c pawn over and over and over. And maybe even move rook to c1, which will additionally threaten pawn takes pawn winning the c pawn. So it's going to be attacked so many times it can't possibly be covered if you watch closely. So now, of course, that really doesn't do anything based on the attack that I had planned. Now it says he can successfully trade and should, but he retreats. It looks like he's getting a very significant advantage here. My plan is to play bishop to a3. Interesting. So simply by moving my queen I get practical parity. So I'm watching the computer analysis, which goes wildly back and forth, and finally I get my move in. And here we say white has a really significant advantage. Once again, by moving bishop to a3 and setting this up. Now understand that, if I play pawn takes pawn, he can take back with the rook and cover that pawn, but he's going to have these horrifying pawn islands you know, that are completely unprotectable, so it suggests he moved knight to d4. But as you can see, now it says I can just go ahead with bishop takes c5, which I don't do. I put more pressure on that pawn. Okay, so now I have to be a little bit aware of some of these things that could come down on g3 here with the knight. Says he should capture, instead he moves his king. Okay, so he moved his king up, which is some sort of strange, disastrous-like move, but he can't castle, so it says that he would only be down close to 2, simply taking. So as you see, that's the end of the game right there. It was a horrible blunder. Now he's lost. See how the rest of this ends up. I'm not doing anything glaringly horrible yet. Says I could have taken on c6, which would have been better. Instead, as you notice, I'm having one of those real positional days here. You know, I'm not playing tactically at all. We're playing like Petrosian. We're just overprotecting the world. Now we're posting a knight deep in enemy territory. Now he's beginning to get too much play. That's interesting. And this is the end. So, what you saw was the McDonnell attack. And I think what you probably discovered is that you can go after those c-pawns and win them. At least one of them, by providing the exact setup that I just showed you. And that was an interesting new unsound chess technique.